What's up, everybody? Trip Smith here on YouTube, and today we're doing a little different paddling adventure. The basics on launching and standing up on your paddleboard. In this case, we're using an inflatable stand-up paddleboard from Chasing Blue. All right, so when it comes to picking out a board, really briefly we'll go over that. So the wider your board is, the easier it's going to be to stand up and balance on it. The narrower it is, the more likely you're going to fall over in the water. But you'll also go faster through the water. So there's a trade-off there. Something else you need to consider is the water conditions. As you can see behind me, we're in a pretty protected area. It's not too rough and rowdy out here. Now you go out to the Gulf, it's going to be a different story. If you're concerned about your balance and staying up on the board, let's start somewhere nice and calm. Now, something else you need to think about is the PSI of the board. Be sure that you have it inflated to the correct PSI. For this board, they recommend 12 to 15 PSI. I have it at 12 right now. If you have too little PSI, it's going to be flimsy. It's going to be like a banana when you stand on it. If you have too much, you risk blowing out a seam. We don't want to do that either. All right, so next up, we'll talk about paddle length and your PFD. Now, paddle length is pretty important, right? So a lot of times what they'll tell you to do is to raise the paddle up to where the handle places your arm at about a 90-degree angle. Well, I'm on an inflatable paddleboard right now, so I'm a little bit higher off the water than like a regular hardboard because these are a little thicker. So I like to raise my paddle a little bit more where my elbow's a little bit higher. So this is pretty good for me. We'll lock her down. Basically, the way that I want my paddle is whenever I make my stroke and I'm bent over just a little bit, I want just to be sure that all of my blade is underwater. So the next step, you want to consider your PFD. In this one, I usually run a belt PFD. It's an inflatable. It's nice and convenient, small, stays on me, so I don't have to have all that extra bulk on the board. But just be sure you're legal whatever you do. And then when it comes to footwear, you can wear whatever you want. I go barefoot a lot of times. I just wouldn't recommend the high-heeled shoes, especially for the men, because not only will you possibly puncture the board, but just don't be wearing that stuff, right? All right, so then we need to think about stance and where we're standing on the board. Now, stance-wise, if we're on flat water, I like to put my feet side by side to each other. Now, if I'm somewhere where I'm getting a little wave action, like if I'm going out over the surf, or if I see a wake coming towards me, I'll kind of stagger my stance a little bit, right? Because when I'm like this, if the board starts doing this motion, I'll be more likely to, I can't correct myself. But if I'm like this, I can, right? And then something, whenever you're in open water, sometimes you need a leash. So you would just attach this to your ankle, attach it to the board. I don't wear it very often unless I'm in like super open water. So, but if you're in moving water, do not wear your leash. It's a danger. So you don't need your leash in that case. And today, we don't need our leash. All right, now let's talk about actually getting on the board. Now this makes a lot of people nervous because you think, okay, I'm gonna get on, I'm gonna fall off. Right, this thing is not stable. What you need to think about is center of gravity, your body's center of gravity. If I'm in shallow water and I get on the board, all right, I'm just gonna come here, I'm gonna place my paddle on the board because a method I use, I like to place my paddle and use it as like my third leg. So it turns myself into like a tripod. So I'll put the paddle on the board on the opposite side and I'll push down on it. So now, I'm kind of standing on the board, right? So whenever I push down on this side, it's not just gonna flip over on me, right? Because I'm pushing down over here. So I'll put my foot about where it needs to be. And generally for most boards, especially if they're not loaded, is about center where this grab handle is. That's about where you wanna be standing. I'll place my foot on here, paddle over here, step up, boom. And now I have this paddle as an extra crutch that helps me stabilize, so I feel nice and comfortable. Then if I need to kind of hop to get my feet in the right position, I can. Then to get off, use your tripod method and just step off. Let's say that you're getting on the board in a different manner. You're not comfortable doing that. Maybe you're in deeper water, and so you start on the board, right? Maybe you've been paddling around all day, just like this, because you're comfortable. And this is nice, you're getting used to it, and now you're ready to stand up. What I like to do, I'll still use my tripod method. I'll have my knees about where I want my feet, then I'll bring one foot up, still on my tripod, so I'm nice and sturdy whenever I stand up, and I'll just stand up, right? Try to get my feet about where they want to be. If they're not perfect, let's go ahead and get them. Let's go ahead and get them where we want them. Then we'll just start to paddle. And one thing, whenever you start to paddle, it's actually going to stabilize the boat or the board a little better, because as the water's pushing on the underside of the board, it basically pushes against the board and helps it to be more stable. But really the most important thing is you on the board. You don't want to be all stiff as a board, because then you're really gonna fall in. You want to be loose and you want to be the center of gravity. See, I can sit here and tilt the board, but I'm okay because my center of gravity is just fine. So if you get off and your center of gravity gets off, that's when you're going over, right? So just be loose, and sometimes it takes a while to get comfortable. Once you get comfortable on the board, that's when you can be silly and you're still gonna be on the board, not in the water. For a few final tips, just stay relaxed, be comfortable on the board, right? And maybe keep your knees bent. You don't want to be, like I said, stiff as a board. So keep those knees bent, absorb the waves and things like that. Now, if you feel yourself starting to fall or getting unstable, you can actually use your paddle as a brace in the water, because your paddle provides some resistance. So if you push down, whatever, push, pull, just use your paddle as a crutch. And don't forget, you can always bring it up here onto the board to give you some stability. Like if you're getting a wave over the back, like I kind of am right now, you can put this paddle up here, you got extra stability. All right, you guys, for more paddleboarding tips, don't forget to check out the Outdoor Master channel and hit that like button. And hey, hopefully these videos will help you get out on the water and enjoy your time on your inflatable paddleboard. I know I enjoy it, so get out there and make it happen.